Welcome to Myth Informed with your host, Brian Edward and Sean Frasick.
Today, hey, everyone.
Today we have with us the YouTuber known as Bunty King.
I was going to say squishy.
Oh my god! It's true because I changed my name on Twitter a bunch of times. Yeah,
and now it's Punished Bunty King.
No, it's not Punished. It's not Punished Bunty King.
It was.
It's just Fat Bunty King now. Now I'm just Fat Bunty King. Yeah.
Damn. I was the it changes
King.
That fast.
I was a Bunty King in Halo 1.
Bunty King. He's a YouTube personality, sometimes happy-go-lucky gamer streamer, sometimes socio-political commentator, sometimes comedian. His goal, he would like to make the world a better place, one hashtag goat at a time.
One goat at a time.
It's so silly. Whenever I read it now, I'm like, should I change that? I feel like I should change that. I'm like, nah, you know what? I'm gonna keep it there. It's really what I'm trying to do.
So why goat? Why hashtag goat?
It honestly was started off because I made a mistake, and I was using when I started on YouTube. I started off as a gaming live streamer, and I had this weird like a Sanskrit looking font on the top of my screen, and it said sub goal, and the L had a T running through it, right? No, it was not a T. It had a line running through it, right? So it looked like a T. So people thought it said sub goat. And so they were like, that's really funny. You're like brown and, you're talking about like goat. And so I just like kept it. And then, eventually, like when I started like, started dipping my toes into socio-political commentary, I began to realize that I was gathering a lot of followers who didn't necessarily always agree with me, but were down to just talk to me because they liked me as a person. And were down to like follow me wherever I went in terms of like what I talked about. They were willing to like listen to it. So I was like, they weren't like sheep to me. Like they're like, I feel like most YouTubers have followers that are sheep.
Yeah,
they just listen to whatever they say and then they take it for like 100% truth. And that's not the case with my followers. My followers would be like, I don't agree with what you just said. Can you clarify? And I appreciate that. So they're goats in the sense that goats are rambunctious and they have personalities as opposed to sheep, which just kind of follow each other around and then run off of cliffs.
Yeah, goats are cool. Yeah, I kind of like those feigning kind too that you walk by and you fall over.
Yeah, they're funny.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've noticed on your channel is you like when people disagree with you, and that's our whole mission is creating discussion. Nothing changes unless you can actually have sane discussion, and yeah, we definitely respect that.
Doesn't that feel better though to have those that are saying, I kind of like the cut of this guy's jib. I'm not sure if I agree with them, but engage.
It's the best feeling ever. It's the highest form of compliment I can receive. Honestly, there's been so many people who have actually said that they have thought of me as someone to send something to first because they think that I'm just a down-to-earth guy. And that's the reality of it, is that I am just an average fucking dude, and just willing to have conversations and try to talk to people that I have some disagreements with, or trying to at least understand where they're coming from, or find that sense of commonality between everybody. That's what I'm trying to find, at least.
I think a lot of people make, and this happens so much online. Maybe it's Twitter because there's only 140 characters.
Well, not anymore,
you can
Brian.
Assume. Well,
there's more than that.
Okay, I didn't update the app
or something.
Anyways, I'm fairly. I don't tweet a ton, but
limited.
Either way, even on Facebook. You can assume people's motives, and then I can take one sentence out of your piece and be like, see, look what he says. This confirms everything. And I think we should not do that as much. I think often things can get confused. You're talking about something else. Maybe you just weren't in a good mood that day or anything. I mean, it really could be a snapshot in time rather than your entire worldview.
Yeah, no, I think people in this game like try to misrepresent each other all the time because it's what gets you the most points in terms of it really like gains you a lot of social currency if you make loud noises for the masses, because especially if you're able to frame it in a way that's palatable or funny and marketable. So people will misrepresent each other all the time. I mean, CNN does it, Fox News does it, people on YouTube do it. It happens to me where they try to go ahead and take I mean, there was a perfect example I have is this one guy. I don't even want to name him, but he took what I had said about a controversial YouTuber named Jean-François Garibay, who's someone that kind of like hangs out in the more alt-right area, even though he doesn't identify as alt-right. And I said that the conversation with him was fascinating. And what was it called? What was the other one? The word I used, but it was fascinating and pretty much. I was just trying to say that I just thought that it was interesting to hear what he had to say, because I didn't really know much about what he had to say. So it was like the conversation was revelatory to me. But of course, they took that and they made it seem as if like I agreed with him, or I agreed with his worldviews. 100%.
You agreed with him 100%.
Right. This is a revelation, and you were buying it hook, line, and sinker, as if
it's like, it's really that shit I don't stand for. Honest. Can I swear on your channel? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
okay,
YouTube.
cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in speaking of like misrepresenting the views, I mean, I saw white supremacy collaborator gets banned for harassing Black Twitter.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
How Bunty King, a white supremacist collaborator. I mean, I gave kudos to the mind bending that you would have to do to get there. I mean, they can't call you white supremacist because, of course, you're not white. But then what? They're like, you're from Vichy, France, or something. A straight collaborator.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because that's what comes up whenever you type in my real name, Anand Virk. You type that in, and that's one of the, I think, the 7th result on the first page of Google, and I think it's hilarious. At first, when it happened, I was like, oh God, I'm like, I don't want this around. Like, people are going to see this, employers are going to see this. But I was like, fuck it, I don't care. I really don't care. It's a great story to tell. I think it's hilarious, and it's like a party conversation now. It's really amazing.
Anyone that would take just a bit to investigate it's going to find out that it's fake. And I would hope, I mean, I like to have an optimist point of view and faith in humanity that people don't always believe everything you hear on the internet.
Right.
You know,
yeah. There's 2 ways to really go about it, right? There's, I mean, ultimately, if you have a claim of something, you'll have proof to back up that claim, and essentially, when that happens, it's like, you know, if you do have that proof, then it's cool, it's fine. But I mean, you know, if it's not there, then it's not there. It's really just that simple. People can't, like, I mean, that's the way I operate at the very least. Like, I'll go to someone, and if this person could have like the worst shit that's said about him, worst shit, and I would just, so the fact that I don't see anything like tangible, and the fact that like it's just a bunch of noise, I want to talk to him and find out what he has to say. And oftentimes they'll tell me a completely different story from what I've heard. You know, like there's things that people have said about, you know, people on the left that have said about people in the alt-right. When I've talked to these people in the alt-right or alt-right, they're just like, that's not true, and here's why. And then I hear their side of the story, and I'm like, oh, it's like there's I used to think the whole like there's 2 sides to every story thing was just like a cop-out. But in injecting myself in this online world in which people are talking about politics and there's personalities at stake, it really is the truth. Like, there's 2 sides to every single story. So.
And it's not just the online culture. It's unfortunately just natural human behavior. I mean, there's a reason why reality shows, you know, reality singing shows, reality whatever shows have become so popular. There's a reason why Kim Kardashian is as big as they are. It's because people love that drama. They really do. Even though it's not true, even though a lot of people know it's not true, they just love being involved. Yeah. And we always kind of make the joke with YouTube. It's like, you know, the Housewives reality show. What is it? The Housewives of whatever. But that you
Orange
can
County,
but that you can interact with, or it's Keeping Up with Kardashians that you can actually now interact with. You can be in the comments. You know,
especially if I fire in a super chat.
Yeah, super chat.
I can really maybe stir the direction of the conversation.
Exactly. So yeah, so I just think it's a human nature thing, and it's not just YouTube. It's not just online. You know, it plays out in many forms of entertainment, and it's kind of just how it's always been. You know, people love drama. They really do.
Yeah, they do.
Right now, we're in a particular time where the tribalism seems higher. And I think, you know, there's multifactorial, the reason why it's there. I didn't really notice it until, say, the spring of 2016, although I know it was going on before that.
Yeah.
I remember asking about it at the Reason rally, which we were there, and I still didn't know who Dave Rubin was at the time, so you can kind of see that, you know, it was just feeling this out, some of the campus like struggles at the time, and I was like, you know, what is this? Is this a thing? But now it's just full on. And I wonder, like, I really want to get at people's, where they're coming from. So when you get yelled at Twitter, and we've been called Nazis. I think the MythCon, and they said was going to be a Nazi.
It's happening again.
Like,
I noticed. I saw June talking about it.
I'm a Mexican.
Yeah, and it's
Nazi,
happening again, right? We're the worst white nationalists ever, because there's plenty of brown people on stage. So I guess we just can't figure it out. But like, I wonder though, sometimes there's probably some real radicals there that may believe what they say, but then I think there's others that are scared. I talked to one person that said, I have kids of military age, and I'm worried about Donald Trump going to war with North Korea. I don't trust that guy. He's crazy and all of this. And, he leans heavily left. But when you're that scared, you could be much more worried about, like Trump, and then completely blind to like that radical left enemy. And if you're on the opposite side, I think you can be blind to the alt-right and the right-wing populist enemy while seeing the left.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Get there and really talk to people and why, and see if you can't like lead them to like analyze this better. Like, what do you think? You really think the people on the left are all wrong? Every bit, 100%, or on the right?
It sucks because I came into talking about this. I kind of like busted into the scene talking about bringing people together, unity, like talking about finding a sense of balance, and that both sides had crazies. That there are deplorable people on both sides. But saying that over and over again now, it just makes no sense. Like, I mean, I've already said it, and everyone else has already said it. So it's like, at this point, it shouldn't even be said. It's like, yes, we understand now. So now it's really kind of about just doing what you can do best in terms of projecting or providing whatever commentary that you have on these situations, and then gathering the people around, and then bringing people to this part in the middle.
Yeah. You were talking about, like, with Lacey Green on a podcast about the right way to say things, and that there's kind of a wrong way and a right way, but at the same time, you're not changing your opinion. Can you elaborate on what you mean there?
So I mean, like, okay, so you can talk about the problems with this, you can talk about the problems with masculinity, like this overt masculinity that's present within culture. All right. Mm-hmm. This demand of men to be a certain way, a very rigid way, in a way that's a lot more welcoming. Because right now it seems like it's shut down. It's something that really isn't. It's not something that will get talked about properly. In the sense that they'll call it toxic masculinity or something like that. So it's really just about making a message. Like, try to understand that the people that you are supposed to be pitching your message to aren't the other commentators on this platform. They're not like the other, like, I guess you may want to do that if you're trying to grow, but I think ultimately the best way to really grow and really kind of get your message out there is by making it accessible to normies. This whole idea of like normies go away, like normies are annoying, normies are ridiculous. Like, no, like normies are the voter base. Like, I'm sorry, dude, but I mean, what was it? Like, were all 63 million people who voted for Trump, were they all people that were on the internet watching Sargon of Akkad? Did they all watch Sargon of Akkad and think, I'm going to vote for Trump? No. The 63 million people that went and voted for Trump, majority probably haven't even heard of Sargon of Akkad. Yeah,
right.
So these guys are normies, and so that's the people that I'm looking to reach to. I'm not looking to reach to people who are like, hanging out on the internet all the time. No, I want to talk to the normal people, and the normal people don't have time to talk. You tell them, if you tell me, can I talk to you about toxic masculinity? They're gonna be like, what the fuck? They're like, no, I'm done. I'm done. This conversation's over. I got work in the morning. I got my kids. I got to take care of that shit. I don't want to talk to you about toxic. What does that mean? Right. They want to know what the problems are without having to really kind of break their heads open for it. And it's about finding the manner in presenting these problems or presenting these topics in a way that's easily accessible. That's the long. Did I explain it?
But I think what you excel in, and what more of the popular YouTubers, entertainers excel in, is making it entertaining, because that's what the normies want. you know, we talk about Trump and why he got voted, but a lot of people don't take into account the fact that he was fucking entertaining.
Oh my
and
God.
It was like watching a goddamn reality show every time you woke up. It's like, what is he going to do now? What is he going to do now? Because unfortunately, people like to be entertained, and the normies are no different.
There's no predicting that one.
Exactly. And people just, you know, there are some things that people were sick of and this and that and politics and whatever, but mostly people were just entertained. And, you know, the best entertainers, unfortunately, or fortunately, can reach the bigger, you know, the wider audiences. And that's what I think you do really well on your channel, is keeping it entertaining, keeping it light, keeping it like, you know, bite-sized, so people can, you know, kind of ease their way into this, because a lot of this stuff is very, very complicated. And as long as you can make people laugh with what you're doing, I think that's very powerful.
Mm-hmm. There's something that was being said. I think was it I don't know who said it, but that the left lost comedy. That was something they said, that the left lost comedy for a while.
Exactly.
And you know, it's like, because of all their political correctness, like, you can't make this joke that offends this person, you know, like, complete bullshit. Yeah. When and it's crazy because that was my that was the moment I started breaking out of it, you know, because I for a while was very much like, okay, we should be respecting women, we should be like, you know, you should be kind of like listening to the experiences of people of color, you know, based on the fact that I grew up in Canada and I had some issues, so maybe you would like to hear what's happened, you know, to kind of make things better for other people of color. And I remember being like that. And then I remember kind of breaking away from this whole like PC culture bit when I started realizing that they were in some ways like attacking normal things that I had taken for granted, things that had helped me grow up. Like, racist humor was something that I had coped with all the time. You know, I'd always coped with it, right? So the fact that they not specifically went to racist humor, but pretty much painted every bit of humor that was even mildly racist as overt racist humor, it just made no sense to me. So that was the beginning. And then when Trump won the election, I was like, there's something really wrong here. Like, I don't know how the hell this guy won. And then I started looking into it, and I realized, oh, people are upset with this stupidity. They're upset with they're upset with you know, the elitism this president of the States. And even though he is a very elite, he's definitely a bit of an elitist. He's definitely like, I know he's got this idea of himself as like this super amazing person, right?
Yeah. Narcissist.
But,
I mean,
but
very high on that scale.
But the thing is that if you look at how he ran his campaign versus how Hillary ran her campaign, like, and just how connected he was with his voter base, how much of a populist he was, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like that's the stuff that got him the win. Yeah. And that's the thing that people want. And I think that the left even needs that too. They want that too. They want someone that's going to go and actually meet them and talk to them about these things that they value, you know. But nobody's doing that. Everyone's acting like they virtue signal on Twitter, or they'll virtue signal. They'll get some celebrities to say something for them. Like, no, that's not how it needs to happen. Like, you got to go in.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm drinking, so I'm burping a bit. So I don't.
No, you're fine. That's, you know, one of the things that has dawned on me, because I really wasn't in this world. Brian is a veteran. He kind of knows the different sides and knows the different people and the personalities and stuff. And I've been learning as I go. But one of the things that's always stuck with me growing up, I grew up in the 90s. And in the 90s, it was very, you know, rebellious. It was alternative rock. It was the Smashing Pumpkins.
Rage Against the Machine.
And then also, I was a huge comedy. So it was like, really, you can say anything when you're on that stage. That is where, you know, ideas come, and, you know, people can challenge pretty much anything and get people to laugh at it. And, you know, one of the things that I look at when we're doing events or booking guests or whatever, we like partnering with entertainers. We like working with them. We've hosted many comedy shows, things of that nature, because, you know, if you take something like Will and Grace, if you look at the LGBT community, yes, there's a place for, you know, activism and going out and protesting and all of that. But something like Will and Grace did way more than, you know, protesting outside of outside of Washington, because now you're reaching the masses, you're reaching the quote unquote normies, you're making people see it, and it becomes normal.
And you're reaching all political spectrums.
Exactly.
I don't think that people would say, well, I'm a Republican, I can't watch that show.
Exactly.
Well, I say this, I've said this before, you know, I have alt-right audience members, people who legitimately identify as alt-right, who watch me and like what I do. And that's, I think, it's pretty cool. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's a lot to we want like retribution and punishment. You know, you've did that, like that these people need to be punished. I hear like expel those students from campus, you know, get rid of, like, make sure these alt-right people don't have jobs anymore. And God, I mean, like, this is just doesn't seem like the solution. I mean, if you're alt-right, I'm just happy that if you would just become not a racist.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you really think that a white ethno state is what's needed to preserve American culture, I would just hope that we can get you to not being racist. And like the folks for like the leftist protests, I just hope that we can stop interrupting classes and stop just completely making a mob of the place people, and let people learn. I mean, you see that the Asian guy that comes out and they're charging in Black Lives Matter. He's like, this is library in broken English, you know, like these people are here to study. They're not helping like the foreigners and like the marginalized people they claim to.
And that's again, you know, with the whole theme of the 90s, like we didn't like when people told us what to think or what to do. Like we experienced and said, okay, I like that or I don't like that, or I'm gonna listen to this person or I'm not gonna listen to this person. It's like, where's that mentality gone? You know, like there's a lot of us from the 90s now that are doing different things, that are, you know, in power positions or whatever, you know, decision-making positions. And where's that? What happened to that mentality? Like I'm baffled by it. It's like, why don't you want to listen to someone just because you don't agree with them? It makes zero sense to me.
It's because social media has amplified everyone's voice, and so everyone gets everyone places a level of importance on whatever they're producing, you know, in terms of content wise on social media, like, and that changes from person to person, right? So for me, like, you know, anytime I tweet, they bang, because I know how to, I know what to, I'm pretty much, I'll have it planned out. I'll be like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to write. I'm going to write it this way. And I'm going to, you know, it's going to be good. This will be good. And so the thing is that, like, I know that for me, like a good tweet is like 1,000 likes, you know, a couple hundred retweets, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but for someone else, it may be something entirely different. It could be for them, a major success for them could be 100 likes versus, you know, 10 retweets. You know, and ultimately, I think that if you can impact anyone's life, even down to the individual, it's amazing. It's well done. But the thing is that this kind of mentality allows people to kind of think that, you know, they're important enough to make a lot of noise. And so it kind of gets these movements going where these people just kind of rally together and just start making crazy amounts of noise instead of like listening to people who are trying to do the research and trying to actually, you know, make things better for everybody.
Yeah,
I don't look at someone like, you know, see, it's crazy that someone like Ben Shapiro would get protested, right? Because I don't agree with everything that guy says, especially when it comes to like abortion. You know, he's pretty religious too. But like the thing is that regardless of whether I agree with him or not, I can acknowledge the fact that he's trying to make the country more livable for everybody.
Yeah,
that's what I'm willing to acknowledge, right? So it's like why don't people need to just calm the fuck down. They need to realize that unless they're presenting solutions, unless they're there to actually like impact people in a way that's like, okay, if they wake up in the day and they're thinking, all right, like how can I make this person's day better?
Yeah,
then they need to leave it to the people who are actually trying to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and the way we connected actually was through Base Mama and Kilroy, because Brian and I and Dima are going to be at Kilroy, and you're going to be at Kilroy. And I know you were involved in that early on, and it's kind of like some of the same themes that we're talking about. Kilroy, you know, for those that don't know, it's a conference that's happening in Phoenix in April 21st, 22nd, I believe.
That's right.
And this was an interesting case study because, you know, for us, there's a lot of inside baseball where it, you know, goes to running conferences and how that works, and, you know, all the different things that have to go on and goes into it, and the money and blah,
We've
blah, blah.
done this several times.
Yeah.
Like usually with smaller conferences, but that practice was huge.
Yeah. The thing with Kilroy is like when we're on our 5th conference now, and finally some people know about it. You know, like when we did the first couple, we had a couple hundred people for the
niche audience.
Yeah. Very small. So it really gave us a lot of time to make some big mistakes. It gave us time to, you know, learn what works, what doesn't. Let's innovate. Let's benchmark with other conferences or whatever. And now with Kilroy, it was a completely different story. Kilroy, as soon as you guys announced Kilroy, it was bam. Everyone knew about it. All these speakers were going, everyone's super excited. But that's a lot of pressure to put on a team that has never gone through even just the beginning stages of this. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I know. I just I mean I just remember like that it was something that kind of blew up because of the fact that they were able to, I don't know if they did this knowingly or unknowingly, but they were able to kind of capitalize off of the VidCon hype, you know, because I think they announced it, I think about the week after VidCon or something.
That's right. Yeah, I remember.
And so like it was like VidCon was crazy, and like that was when we were all together, we were all having a great time. And then when it ended, it was like we're still on that high, like, oh my god, it was so nice to finally meet everybody and just like talk to them. And then and yeah, so that's pretty much that's what it I feel like that's really what led to, you know, Kilroy being because also here's the other thing, like a lot of the people that I went to VidCon with, they weren't, you know, really acknowledged as YouTubers. I mean, the VidCon acknowledges like the normie YouTubers, like, you know, Lily Singh or trying to think of other ones, you know, like for example,
I can't help you out there, Bunty. I don't know.
Josh Paul.
Logan Paul, yeah, exactly. Like, those people, exactly. That's what it acknowledges. Like that's the people. That's their demo, right?
Yeah.
So you know, a lot of people were thinking like, why don't people like Chris Raygun and, you know, Shoeonhead, why don't like people like them have a conference too? Because I mean, they were a sizable audience, right? They have sizable audiences, and so that's, I think, what pretty much led to Kilroy happening. But I think there was just some awkward optics. I think you guys can get into that if you guys want to.
Yeah, and you know, some of it is fair and some of it is unfair. And you know, Base Mama, I'm sure the team that's running it now will totally admit that they made some mistakes early on. They got some bad advice, you know, NDAs and other things that, you know, when you're trying to put people in boxes, that's what corporate events would do. That's what, you know, the celebrity style events will do. You know, in this world, it's completely different. It's more independent. So some bad advice early on. And again, they didn't have the practice that we had in the beginning. It says, okay, this is best practice. Let's try this. Oh, that didn't work. Shit. Now let's try and figure it out, you know. And just being under the microscope in the beginning was tough. And I think what a lot of people, when I say inside baseball, a lot of people don't understand. Brian and I understand. Bunty, you probably understand now. There's a lot that goes into this. There's so many moving parts. There's so many communications that you need to make. And especially when you're known, especially in the social world, the way it is today, and the critics that just love to just to be critics, because again, they want likes and retweets and whatever. Now you're thrown into this world where you got to make sure everyone's happy. You got to make sure all your P's and Q's are there. Your venue's happy. Everything's communicated. The speakers don't freak out because they think it's an alt-right conference or whatever the criticism is of the conference. And you know, that experience just wasn't there. And you know, I think what Kilroy's done now, and I know there's a lot of critics out there still, but that's, again, I don't put a lot of stock in that. Actions speak louder than words. You know, they've done a good job of changing the narrative to is Kilroy happening to Kilroy is happening, and this is when it's happening. Now, what the challenge is for the Kilroy team, in my opinion, is to put on the best damn show that they can, and actions will speak louder than words. If they come through and do this thing right, you know, the critics start to go away. We've noticed that with MythCon 5 this year already. You know, people thought they can shut us down last year. They thought they can do all this crazy shit to fuck with us. And we proved that that's not going to happen. So now they have to change their tactics. So with Kilroy,
which is so shitty. I actually really want to talk to you guys about that after this, because I've been watching. So I just really want to pick your brain. But yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm just saying now where Kilroy's at now is if they come through and they do what they say they're going to do, the critics change. The conversation changed. The whole thing changes, and that's the challenge that they're at right now. And I think Base Mom understands that. And again, you know, it just had so much buzz in the beginning. You had some of the team members fall apart. Shit, if the board members on our team would fall apart, it's hard. Yeah,
organizing itself is hard, and then when you're under the microscope, it makes it that much harder. And on your first time, that's like the triple Lindy. It's hard to pull off.
Well, I mean, like I said before we started the show, there were some things that just went that I wasn't cool with. You know, like I was one of the first people to sign the contract because I gotta say that I'm a little I've treated the internet like it's my front yard, which is a fucking problem. It really is, right? Because my neighborhood is chill. I can go up to anyone and I can talk to anyone, and I know that I'm not going to get attacked or accused of some other fucking crazy thing, you know. But the internet isn't that place at all. The internet is just full of very sometimes manipulative people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for the most part, I feel like I've encountered some really great people, and I've formed some very solid connections with people, like just really like amazing people that I'd like to continue to have in my life for the rest of my life. But I just felt like I wasn't being told stuff in regards to Kilroy. I felt like I wasn't being told I wasn't given the complete picture. And when I was talking about it, I was like, well, I couldn't say anything, you know, because I signed this contract, I signed this NDA, and I was like, I don't know what I can say, you know. And then after I signed it, you know, I found out that, you know, Tim Pool dropped, and then I find out that all my friends are starting to drop. They're just dropping, and I was like, suddenly I'm the only guy going there, and I was like, my friends are not really going to be there. There's might be one or two of them there, but like for the most part, they're all gone. And then I was like, well, do I go or do I not go? Do I find a way to like cancel this contract, just not go, or do I like maintain some sense of honor and tell people, yeah, I'm going. So that's it. So I am going. So that was my whole like those are my thoughts about Kilroy. I haven't really spent too much time thinking about it because there was just so much drama going around it. I didn't want to talk about it because it's just like anybody that was talking about it was just being annoying. You know, I was like, just didn't want to.
The expectation there is that you're Bunty King, right? That you don't have to be anyone that you're not. And it seems like you're pretty comfortable being yourself and in different spaces. So why not?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, the thing is that I've recently kind of adopted this attitude where I don't want to step on people's toes anymore. Because I was doing a little bit of toe stepping before I got suspended on Twitter in November. And then I got my account back. And when I got my account back, I was like, all right, listen, I'm just going to go ahead and just tone it back. I'm just going to like, if I need to say something, if I need to disagree with someone, I'm going to disagree with them enthusiastically, especially if it's something that I care about and if you feel like they're making an impact in an industry that I give a shit about, right? But when it came to like the whole like fringe politics, when it came to like race stuff or anything like that, I was like, I'm out. I'm done. Because I'm done talking about it. I was like, I don't care anymore. Like, if you guys want to keep talking about this, be my guest, but I'm not going to be part of the conversation anymore. Say whatever you want. Say anything you want. You can like spend like, I don't care if people spend, you know, an entire stream talking about whether I get to live in Canada or not. Like, I don't care about that. Like, that's something I don't give a shit about anymore.
Yeah. Well, and that's, yeah, people shouldn't be talking about other people anyways. If you're going to have the discussion, especially about someone else, they should be there. And that was one of the, for me, that was an interesting experience going through with MythCon 4 and a lot of what I saw with Kilroy. It's a lot of these conversations that people were assuming for us. They were saying, okay, this is what they're trying to do. This is what it's like. Wait a minute. How do you know what we're trying to do? You're not in the board meeting every Sunday. You're not busting your ass hours a day trying to figure out social media and do all this shit and trying to figure it out. How do you have any idea what any of us are thinking if you're not talking to us? And that's why what we want to do with MythCon is bring the discussion to the stage, have it moderated, have you know, bring these topics that everyone loves complaining about or everyone loves talking about for whatever reason, and really try to get to some answers, you know, and really try and foster the discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, that's my role. That's probably gonna be my role at Kilroy. I'm not going to really, I don't feel like I should be on any panels really. I'm just there to, I would like to moderate. That's something that I've always pretty much wanted to do. There's people who have been spending so much time talking about the things that they're going to be talking about that I feel like I have no place in the conversation. Cause it's like, I mean, I do technically, I mean, I could say something. I think everybody has somewhat of a valuable opinion, but if I need to give up, I was ready to give up by any kind of panel spot to somebody else more worthy. You know, I just want to moderate.
The moderator spot's just as important.
It really is.
I love moderating. I love it. It's just I really ultimately just want to keep people happy. I just want to make sure that people are chilling, you know,
but also keep the discussion going. I mean, you have to know both sides. The moderator spot, in my opinion, is one of the toughest positions.
You have to be able to steel man both sides.
You have to stay unbiased. You have to be able to keep it going. And yeah, that's great, man. That's again like fostering the discussion and keeping it going. So like, you know, for our part in Kilroy, we're gonna go again. Child of the 90s. I don't listen to what people tell me, especially on Twitter.
I heard Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Yeah, Nirvana taught me well. I'm going to show up and see what it is, you know, and hopefully it's great and it's a success and hopefully they can keep doing it. Our conference, it's, you know, again, it's one event in a year. So we can only do one event in a year. We want to see other conferences like this succeed. You know, we're not, you know, there's some other cons out there and some other people out there that are just digging at us and saying, wow, they're the worst, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, we're not about that. It's like, do your own thing then. You know, if you don't like what we're doing,
it's so
to you, man.
And I feel bad for you guys because I mean I don't feel bad for you because I mean you guys seem to be doing well, but like the thing is like it just sucks because you guys seem like pretty nice dudes and like I feel like your intentions are very genuine. You're not there to pretty much just kind of like scheme or anything like that. You pretty much just want to present dialogue. You want to give people the opportunity to have a conversation. And I'm just seeing some of the things that are being said about some of your guests because some of these guests like are my friends, like people like Shoe on Head, like Armored Skeptic, Chris Raygun, some black guy, Quartering, all these people. And you got someone like Dan RL sitting over there, and they just saying and I don't expect you to comment on it. I'll go ahead and speak for Dan RL. But like this guy just
don't do that.
he's just uttering absolute nonsense, you know. And it's like I don't get that whole approach. I mean, they tried to shut you down last year, and now they're trying to kind of stir something up again this year. I didn't think that they would try doing it again. I mean, they failed. They failed last time.
Yeah. Well, I think their tactics definitely have to change. You know, because again, we've showcased. You know, our intentions are just to put on a good show, bring people, have some fun, get some good conversations going. And, you know, that one of the things I like to bring up to our guests or anybody, you know, people that email us or whatever, is don't listen to that hype because you can get sucked into that and just be like, oh my God, the world's burning down and blah, blah, blah. And then you go to work and talk to someone, they have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. You know, like regular people typically don't know what the hell's going on. And then when you show up, you see, oh man, like, you know, this is amazing. There's a bunch of people here that are excited. I mean, at MythCon 4, it was just
the energy was awesome.
Energy was amazing. I mean, yeah, okay, you take a 1-minute clip out of one of the panels. It's the reason why it sounded so loud is because there were 650 people there. I mean, you know, it was constantly loud. There's a lot of energy, and that's what we want to bring is energy to this and give people platforms that haven't had it in the past and you know, really spark some motivation for people.
It seems like too, like it's 1 minute of one segment that's talked about over and over of like a 12-hour con, if you count the after party and if you count all the other panels, but yet there's no commentary made about everything else, which went pretty much as planned. The debate between a Muslim feminist and an Iraqi ex-Muslim atheist went fantastic. I mean, but no one says a word about that, and because this isn't
get the clicks. Doesn't get the clicks.
Right.
If things are going if like things are just moving smoothly along, it's like well we can't work this into social points. We can't work this into social currency.
Yeah, that one was so clean. It was like sterile. Like not even a piece of bacteria would grow on it.
Do you know, like there's so many times when I have Twitter open and I got a screenshot of someone's tweet. All right. Like it's like so funny. Like if you think about it, it's like if you were to put it in terms of like a hitman, like I've got the target in sight. There's been so many times where I look at someone, I have a tweet screenshot, like just ready to go. And I got copy in my tweet, ready to go. And I know that if I hit that tweet button, people are going to share the shit out of it, and that guy's going to just get roasted publicly. Yeah. And I end up deleting it. I write it out and then I delete it, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, I'm done. I do it all. I used to do it all the time, and now I just avoid doing it.
There's a trend that's changing there. Like Bering and Sargon both have kind of like indicated to their audience, all right, please don't dogpile X channel or don't try to get in contact with these people. For one, it's not a good idea. And two, it's not going to help your cause. Yeah. And I think that's a good way to do it. I mean, if you're more to the left, well, then do it out of like, well, come on, this isn't the nice thing to do. That isn't sensitive. If you're more right leaning, then this isn't utilitarian at all. Don't do this. But I think we have to be nicer to each other online. We have to.
The thing is, we have, as a personal choice, yes, we have to. All right. Like, I think that we absolutely must be nicer than people online. And if you feel like you can't be nice to someone online, like you feel like you really can't, get rid of get rid of them from your mindset, like block them, mute them, do whatever you can just to like not interact with them. Right. But I don't expect other people to be nice. You know, but I will expect them to be nice if they want to talk to me. Like
Yeah.
if they want to talk to me, like it's so easy. Just be nice, you know, be respectful.
And that's
and you get so much more out of collaboration. You know, you really do. Even though nobody 100% agrees with anyone else. I see Brian like 3-4 nights out of the week every week because all the things we're doing.
Mhm.
I don't agree with everything he says. He doesn't agree with everything I say. That's how it should be. But collaborating, working together, you can create so much more than just, you know, shit posting or, you know, just talking shit. And
I love shit posting, and talking shit can be fun, but
yeah,
there's a fun way to do it. There's a fun way to do it.
Right. If it's in fun and both parties know it's in fun, yes, absolutely. That's what we always do with one another. Absolutely. But yeah, you're right. When you're trying to go after somebody and ruin their day or their life or their social media presence, yeah,
that's crazy.
There's a time for joking around. There's time for like good discussion. And I think if we can get, there's going to be truth to, there's at least a kernel of truth of what anyone says, you know, and I would suspect the popular commentators on the left and the right, and I hate using those terms because it's mixed. Yeah. Again, there are truths on both sides. And when we can get at them and understand that a little bit better, and you approach the conversation with, what can I learn? Like, as opposed to how can I shut them down? What can I meme? You know, or how can I shitpost this? That's going to be better. And we're finding some unlikely allies that, you know, we of course have our own biases. I lean libertarian, but I'm doing my absolute best to like try to push that bias out. That's why MythCon has a team too. You know, the more middle of the road, the more straight shooting we can do, the better.
Yeah. Well, for example, my personal bias is, you know, I'm interested in acquiring allies of sorts. I'm interested in acquiring, like, you know, people who I can stand next to and support and you know, and have that support returned. You know, it's not expected of people, but I generally look towards to people who I'd be like, you know what, if that person was in trouble, I'd want to stand up for them, you know. And that's pretty much what's been happening, right? And it really kind of goes back to like how I was raised as a kid, right? I didn't really have a lot of friends, right? So for me, it was just getting friends in real life was a major accomplishment. And that happened towards the end of high school. I started getting friends, started getting invited to parties. And then it happened so fast that it went to my head. I thought it was king. I thought it was king shit. I thought it was like the best, right? And then I you know, I got a reality check, and then, you know, was able to kind of rebuild again. And then, you know, now I've got a very solid foundation of friends in real life, and now I've extended that group to this world online where there's all these people. And so it's been like, that's my personal bias, I guess, in a way. It's like this desire to meet more people and encounter more people and just kind of like make friends with, form meaningful relationships with people. And it's funny because because of that, I don't really have, I'm not going to factor in politics into my decision of whether I make someone a friend or not. Like, I've got a friend who lives like a couple blocks away from me, and dude hates guns. He thinks, hey, if you own a gun, you're an idiot. And I think obviously that's stupid. I think that you should, like, you can own guns if you want to. I'm all about that, you know. But he's still my friend, right? And someone recently, like that I had the opportunity to meet last year was Baked Alaska. Yeah, I interviewed him on my channel, and if you look in the news about Baked Alaska, you see nothing but bad stuff, right? But I've had like
Charlottesville, I believe. Yeah,
Charlottesville, and like just a bunch. I mean, look, on an ideological level, I'm pretty sure like there's some things that I just don't agree with at all. And I've told him that, but we connect on a different level, and we connect on other stuff. We connect on like things that don't have anything to do with politics. We connect on just being people, you know? Yeah. And that's the thing that I appreciate about him. So like I can count him as a friend. You know, I don't talk to him every day, but I can count him as a friend. Even though he's in the alt-right, alt-light camp, you know, I wouldn't want to screw him over. I wouldn't want him to be hurt. These are the kinds of things that like and that's how I'm navigating this space. And some people see that as deplorable. They see it as someone who's just like who has no values. No, the values are there. The values are in personal values. I see personal value in someone like him.
There was a woman online that was part of the Westboro Baptist, right? And she grew up in that. So she was out, you know, at 5 holding signs that say, you know, like fag guy, and that the God hates fags, stuff like that. And like she was down to 20 some years old. She's still doing this, but there was a guy that continued to talk to her, almost made friends with her, and eventually got her out of that. Like, but it took the understanding of actually saying, yeah, you've got some really whacked out views, but we can talk. You're all right. For her to come around. And now she's a big activist against this, but it's an incredible speech. And I thought that we need more of that. I've seen a black man, I can't remember his name, talk to neo-Nazi, like that. I think you have to get this modicum of friendship first before you can actually like pull them out of that ideological like quicksand that's holding them, they're being held by.
I actually just on Monday, like 2 days ago, I had lunch with someone whose first interaction with me on Twitter was, "You're not a Canadian, you're brown, and Canadians are French. You're either, if you're only Canadian, if you're of English descent, or French Canadian." Yeah. And I was like, and I quote tweeted him and called him a peasant, and like, just like pretty much like and I had lunch with him. I sat with him for 2 hours. Sat with him for 2 hours and talked to him. This guy, it was fine. We just had a conversation. Like, and I by the way, this is someone who I already had. He's not a commentator on YouTube. He's nobody in terms of YouTube, right? Guy.
Right.
Just a guy. I remember DMing him, and I said, this is after I called him peasant. I said, DM'd him. I said, "Listen, man, I acknowledge that you have your experiences and what you have gone through, and that this is why you've kind of come up to this worldview of sorts. But whatever you said hurt me. But I do apologize for calling you a peasant." And then he apologized in return. He said, "I'm sorry too." And then here we are, like Monday, just having food together, and he, like, we're just talking about life. We're talking about the state of the world, and he's trying to figure out why I am the way I am. Because a lot of people who fall on the white nationalist side, they view race as something that's very natural, like that preference, the racial bias as natural. And I can't argue that. I actually cannot argue that at all, because in some ways it seems very true. And so he asked me, he said, "It seems like you're actively working against it." And I'm like, I'm not working against it. Like, yeah, like if I see a brown person, like I'm like wondering, I'm like, where are they from? Like what, like I'll have that kind of thing in the back of my head, but I've added a layer to it. And for me, that layer is like, are these people, and all this is based on my life's experiences. So in terms of like, I value, business ethic, I love small businesses. Like, so for me, like, I'm thinking, okay, was this someone I could work with? Is this someone that I could like do something with? Like these are things that I add as a layer on top of just the racial element. So now I've like kind of, I'm kind of tripping over my words here, but like it's not just, for me, it's also like just if they're a good person too, because I've grown up around so many different people. So that's pretty much it. So that like,
are they saying?
I explained that to them.
Is that what they're saying? Are they making that saying? Well, you have in-group bias too. Was that? Yeah.
Well, I think everybody to some degree has that level of in-group bias, like because it's just there. It's like there on a natural level, just because of how we've kind of evolved over time and how we were grouped together. Indians were pretty much with Indians for the majority of human history, if you think about it. Like it's only been in the last like little tiny speck of human history that we have had people connecting with one another on this level, right? And it's kind of, and I don't think we've caught up to it. I don't think we were ready for it, so it's kind of like driven us a little bit nuts. But I think that people need to kind of, once they realize that they're not going to be, unless you're, and that's something I actually told them. I said, unless I'm enacting policy, I don't give a shit about an overarching racial structure. I don't care about that, because I'm meeting people on an individual basis. I'm not meeting 200 black people or 200 white people or 200 Asians. I'm not meeting it. I'm meeting one guy here, one guy there, and one guy there. And I said, listen, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. Guess who some of the dumbest people I've ever met are? White. So it's like, what do you want me to what do you want me to tell you there? Like, I personally met more dumb white people than I have met dumb black people. So it's like, I don't care about these statistics because I'm not forming policy. I'm just here trying to connect with people on an individual level, or at least show them something, show them like that there's more to this reality than these statistics and numbers and policies. No, you have to go outside and you have to inject yourself into your community that you're in, or try to find a way to do that. And if it's really that dire, then you got to, you know, look elsewhere and kind of figure out how you can get help brought in.
Right. Well, and I think race, the race discussion is really interesting because growing up in Chicago, I grew up in a largely predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, and it was kind of half and half. It was Hispanic and white. And then, you know, obviously on the south side of Chicago, it's very segregated Chicago, just like it is in Milwaukee. And yeah, when you grow up, you think this is it. This is like the whole thing. This is, you know, this is what the whole world's like. But then when you actually start traveling the world, you start to see how small-minded that is, because when you're in Egypt, when you're in Kenya, when you're in Greece, you're not white, you're not Mexican. When I was in Egypt, they didn't even know what Mexican was. They know I'm American.
They knew Canada. They didn't know. They didn't know what
Canada.
Mexico was.
They didn't know what Mexico was.
In Kenya, they took me as a local. In Kenya and Tanzania, they took me as a local. They didn't think that I was foreign at all, because they got they have an Indian population there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Cool.
It was
cool.
really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because you see, like, the race discussion changes depending on where you're at. Like, you know, again, if you're in another country, for the most part, people just, that he's an American or she's an American. I mean, that's what you're labeled as, and that comes with its own, like, you know, criticisms, or, you know, expectations, or, you know, stereotypes. So it's interesting, you know, how localized the race discussion is, and you know, depending on where you're at and where you live, it changes. So it's an interesting discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So well, you mentioned, like, you did, I think it was on the Rubin Report, you'd experienced at least some racism, like, going up. Like, explain, like, what you meant. Like what would you get? What would bother you?
So I think that, so it is interesting. I think, because it was funny, because, like, I would never see people really being racist towards Black people growing up, because I felt like Black people were already kind of like around, you know, before. I feel like Indians came a lot later in terms of, like, you know, it's like, so when I was growing up, I saw, like, a lot of people just pretty much just targeting me, just calling me a Paki, like basic run-of-the-mill racism, which if it happened today, I would laugh at, because it means nothing. But back when I was a kid, it felt like I had no friends, you know. And then, you know, there was this one kid that would live across the street from me, and he would just constantly come out and just beat the shit out of me. And it was, I wouldn't want to go out in the street to play because he was around there. And it's okay though. Like, honestly, at this point, like, I used to have a lot of hatred for him. I would be like, man, if I found that guy again, because I'm a big guy now, like, if I found that guy, I'd beat the shit out of him. That's what I used to say. But now I'm like, not like that at all. I really don't. I can only imagine what he's doing right now. I think that he's probably, I would imagine that if he grew up in the same time period that I grew up in, he'd probably be a pretty just normal dude, just a guy that just probably has a family or is doing his thing, and that's it. He's just a run-of-the-mill Canadian. You know, I think that everyone kind of, like, it was so new to people. Like, a brown person living with them was new to them. It was new. They didn't. And it was new to, and for me, because because the world that I knew, because I didn't really have a lot of friends, the only way I was able to kind of really experience North American culture was through movies. All right. And that's when I was watching movies,
yeah,
and TV and books and stuff like that. But then most of the human interaction I had was with my sister and my parents. And right, because my parents were Indian, like, I had almost a major obsession with India at one point. I felt more attached to that part, that culture when I was younger, because I felt like there was nothing in this culture for me, because nobody wanted to be my friend or anything like that. But then as I, you know, progressed through, you know, high school and approached the end of high school, I established my identity in some way, or a semblance of an identity, started making friends, and then started growing from there. And then here I am, you know, at the age of 30, and, like, Montreal is like a reality that I would never want to live without. It's like literally everything, that all the experiences I've had, the negative and all that shit. So that's why you're never going to see me talk about being bullied or being targeted for racism as a kid, as some kind of victim narrative. I'm never going to build. It's an experience. It's something that I experienced, and I think, and I value as an experience now. It's like, it happened, and it made me who I am today. And I know that there's a lot of people who are still trapped in this mentality where they're still hurt, you know, and they're just on that part of the journey, because I was part of that journey too.
Yeah, because you do have to grow. I mean, if you experience a trauma, there's post-traumatic stress. But like Azra Nomani, like, quoted she goes, I want to be in post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
Like you want to get past that. You don't want to stay in that injured, you know, you don't, if you've got a broken wing, okay, well, that's fine. We'll mend the wing, but don't say I'm not going to fly again.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And I should add though, I was also fortunate to experience like, I'm like, you know, Canada's been a little bit more progressive than the States. I mean, we legalized gay marriage over a decade ago. Yeah. And, you know, you guys had just legalized it, what, like recently? It's been like the last 5 years or something like that. It's been legalized.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And it's, and for that's bonkers to me. Cause like we've been like ahead of the curve in terms of like, you know, what's like social stuff. Right. So I feel like I have, and I mentioned this people lost their shit when they heard me say this on the Rubin Report. I mentioned something about having privilege, or being privileged to live in Montreal. And I stand by that, because I am privileged to have grown up in where I did grow up, because the level of racism that I probably experienced was probably far less than what people probably experience in down south, or in like, you know, I can only imagine. I don't want to like it's crazy. I hear some of the stories of shit that happened in the 90s, you know, in the States, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like that didn't happen. That stuff like that kind of happened here, but like, no, not anymore. Like now when shit like that happens here, people are like, whoa, let's make sure that never happens again. You know, it's like that kind of thing. Anytime we have anyone kind of like start being a little bit racist, or saying something like completely like out of left field or right field in this manner, that it would just be like, it would just be like, we wouldn't be stoked about it. We would be like, please calm down, you know?
It seems like things are improving. And I heard Brett Weinstein, or it might make a comment on Joe Rogan that I thought was brilliant. He said, when you apply a solution that needs to 100% fix the problem, you always like disrupt all of the other things and send a domino cascade and kind of wreck things. Whereas if you can fix 95, 96% of the problem, you can probably do that and have things work. But it's this kind of insistence on every piece of racism must go away. Like this point of like tiniest bit of joke, we got to get rid of that joke. You're going to ruin things in the process, and things are going to be worse, not better.
Yeah, but like you said, I think things are getting better. I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful for the future. Like that, I'm very much an optimist. So, you know, I see, I just see a lot of people coming together at some point and being like, you know, we're done with this whole white people versus black people business. Like, it's stupid. I'm already seeing, I mean, it's happening in small numbers. Like, people are just like, I don't care what your skin color is. I just want you to be an American. Are you an American? Yeah, that's cool. Or like, I don't care what anybody, for me, it's Canadian. Like, I just want people to be Canadian.
And another bond. It feels like, you know, one of our panels at MythCon is going to be a trans panel, and Blair White and Theron Meyer. And I know
I love Theron. I actually like both of them.
Yeah, I mean, and Angel Bonilla is going to be on there, and Brittany Simon is going to moderate it. But what I think is that in all of them, I think have that same idea of being a trans activist to really kind of help normalize it, put it out here. And I really think it's a good idea. Like people on the right aren't going to listen to this lefty person. Right. Like the fact that Blair's like, no, I came out for Trump, I'm a conservative. That's how you normalize trans on the right. And then there's those on the left that would never listen to Blair.
Yeah.
And that's where you need voices all over the spectrum if you're going to achieve that goal.
That's where you have Theron, but then also what Angel's doing. I mean, she's the first ever trans woman to be on The Voice. Mm-hmm. And The Voice is, you know, one of the #1 television shows that there is out there. And like, how better to normalize, you know, the trans identity than to be on one of the most popular television shows, competing just like anyone else, not being treated any differently. I mean, it's the whole thing is fantastic. So I think there's different ways of addressing things, you know, and there's not always a right or a wrong. There's just different ways.
Yeah, there's truth on both sides. Yeah. That's the point. And I think it's finding that and, you know, and seeing it can be eye-opening.
Blair's been successful, Theron, all of them, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a piece of the truth. Everyone's got a piece of the puzzle, you know, like that's pretty much it. And like, it's about trying to find, like, you're not going to figure it out until people start talking. And I think, I don't know who said it. Someone said it, and it was really interesting how they said it, but mentioned how we develop speech as humans to pretty much avoid hitting each other. Like we started talking to each other so that we could communicate that communicate some sense of displeasure. So before it got to the point where we started, you know, inflicting blows on one another. And I think that like it's crazy that, you know, that we with this amazing tool for mass communication that we're still threatening at like coming to blows with each other when we shouldn't. It should just be like, listen, can we just talk? Can we just talk? Let's talk and let's see what we both want. Can we both figure out what we both want? That's the perfect thing.
Yeah.
Just start with what we both want.
In these conversations, all of them that happen, I'm much more interested in the points of agreement than like the many more points of disagreement, because that's the starting place right there to having that conversation and of like the sitting down with your guy, you know, like that's brilliant. I love that story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, we have Kilroy coming up. Bunty, what else you got coming up right now? Anything you want to discuss?
There's something that I'm working on with some friends. We're gonna announce it later. But pretty excited about that. It's gonna be pretty huge. It's gonna be gaming related. So awesome. Yeah, because I've moved the focus away from like fringe politics, talking about like alt-right Antifa shit that I don't. Yeah. I'd rather let them talk about it. Like they want to talk about it. They want to go to war with each other, have fun. But I'm going to be really kind of focusing more on the gaming industry, because video games were something that I was also raised on, and they're a major component of my life, right? So
and they bring people together. That's a funny thing about the gaming community. Like I've always been kind of part of the gaming community in the sense where I went to arcades as a child, and like I know those don't exist anymore, but that was like our community, you know.
Oh, they exist in an even better way now. They exist for us now. Have you been to an arcade bar?
Oh no, we have one in Milwaukee, and it's really not that good.
We have one arcade bar called Arcade Montreal. It gets a little bit too hot though. It's like really hot, but it's packed full of arcade machines and like classic ones. And when I was in the States, I went to this, I forget what this place was called. It's on my Instagram somewhere, but it was a really, really cool arcade bar. And yeah, downtown LA. I think there's like a couple, but there was this one really cool one. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, because that really binds people, you know, when you get, you know, the couch co-op or whatever, you get the friends over, like Mario Kart.
Yeah, aren't you going to challenge them to Mario Kart?
Mario Kart was the longest running, I think.
Sean's close to unbeatable.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I guess. Well, I guess we don't want to oversell it, but I'm pretty good. Fritz is gonna hate that you said that, but it was, you know, it brings people together, and because it's a competition and it's fun, and you know you can joke around when you're doing it, so it's a really cool community. And I saw you interviewed one of your favorite games music developers. I thought that was awesome, because that's great, you know, like you don't think about that, and it's like, yeah, let's talk about how a game is made. That's cool.
Well, yeah, it wasn't really based on how the game was made. It was more about the fact that he was fired. And he was like if he wasn't a part of this team, the game wouldn't have been the same at all. Like I'm convinced it wouldn't have been the same at all. Like he was really like critical of the team, and they got rid of him because of Twitter outrage, a Twitter outrage mob. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is ridiculous. And then, you know, you see the same thing happen. Like it happened to you guys. You had a Twitter outrage mob on you. You had a social media, like people on YouTube. You had all these people barking at you. Yeah. And you guys were able to deliver the convention without breaking. You guys did it, you know, and you're going to do it again this year. And literally companies are just going to finally start realizing that outrage mobs should not be listened to.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why I think everything evolves, and social media is so new, you know, like mass communication is what's made the US great for, you know, so many decades. And, you know, but it evolves, you know, the telephone has evolved, all of it's evolved. And we're still trying to figure it out. You know, you're right when it's like, oh, I got a new like, or I got a retweet. Oh my God, I feel so good. You know, it's like this weird like thing where
I've been validated.
Exactly right. You know, but I think people are going to start getting sick of these outrage mobs and are going to rebel against it, because that's what people typically do. And it's going to change, and it will evolve. And, you know, we need people like you who, you know, want to share the love and have a more peaceful interactions to kind of lead that. And, you know, like we do too, we ignore Twitter. Like, you know, we have to use it because you have to, unfortunately, but we're not, you know, living and dying over it, you know? So I think that's the secret.
Right.
I think the major secret is to start is to start engaging the positive stuff coming your way.
Yeah.
And boosting that up. That's what I do now. Like anytime anyone has an actual thoughtful thing to say, that's the stuff that I'll quote tweet. And if I do get a hater, I make it I almost put it in a very playful manner. Like some guy messaged me yesterday night, and he would just called me like a retard. And he says, he called me a fucking retard. He says, what to do? That's what he said, what to do. And then I was like, wait a minute, it sounds, I feel like I can make a story out of this. So I played it off as if he was my Somalian refugee employee for my grilled cheese stand, and that he was getting angry at me. He doesn't really know how to communicate effectively, but he keeps messing up the grilled cheeses. And I was just like silhouette stuff like that. Like you get to play with it, you know?
Yeah, have fun with it.
You got to make it a positive environment, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's such, again, we need it. We have to study it as an organization. We have to look at metrics. We have to see what works and what doesn't. And it's sad, but you're right. There's better ways of interacting with it and sharing more positive messages.
And as a neutral, right, when you're trying to organize a con where you're getting a wide diversity of viewpoints, to sit there and shit post about one of them, like that's probably not a good idea. So we really
you'll notice our Twitter account, we don't shit post. All we do is promote the people that support us, and we're not getting into it. You know, it's pointless because you're just screaming.
And it would be against the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bunty, thank you so much. We're going to see you at Kilroy. I'm excited. Again, I'm going to judge with my own eyes because that's what I do. I don't listen to Twitter. I don't listen to crazy people. And it's going to be fun, man. I'm really, really excited.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I look forward to meeting you guys in the flesh.
Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, just stay on right now, and yeah, we'll end it right here. But thanks again, Bunty.
Yeah, thanks.
Take it easy.